Hey, I get it when you're standing in the garage looking at a pile of tiny metal bits and a big idea for a custom connector. The last thing you want is to spend a few $100s on a tool that ends up sitting under a workbench collecting dust. That hesitation is what made me dig into the micro-milling world before I hit record, because I didn't want you to guess whether a PROXXON MF70 with the CNC add-in is worth the bench space and the budget. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The MF70 isn't a full-size CNC router you'd see in a professional shop. It's a compact, desktop-sized mill that can handle workpieces no larger than a couple of inches across. That size makes it a sweet spot for people who need precision on a hobbyist or small business scale. Think jewelry makers carving delicate pendants, model engineers fabricating gears for RC cars, or makers who want to prototype a tiny housing for an Arduino board. If you've ever tried to get a clean 0.5mm slot in a piece of brass using a hand drill, you know how frustrating it can be. The MF70 spindle runs at up to 20k RPM, and when you pair it with the PROXXON CNC controller, you get repeatable motion that lets you cut those fine features without hand trimmer getting in the way. So who should actually click Add to Cart? First, anyone who already works with small-scale metal or hard plastics and needs a reliable way to reproduce identical parts. If you're already comfortable setting up a basic CNC workflow, loading code, calibrating 0 points, and swapping tooling, the MF70 becomes a predictable, low-maintenance platform. Its rigid steel column, which is bolted directly to the base, gives enough stiffness to keep chatter down on most hobby-grade materials. That means you can mill a 1mm deep pocket in aluminum without the cut turning into a mess of burrs, provided you're using the right cutter and feed rate. Second, the machine is a solid entry point for people who want to learn CNC without committing to a massive investment. The PROXXON controller is intentionally simple: a few buttons, an LCD that shows position, and a USB connection for your laptop. You can start with the supplied sample files, watch the tool trace a tiny logo, and then move on to designing your own parts in Fusion 360 or a similar CAD package. Because the whole unit weighs only a few kilograms, you can move it around if you need to free up bench space for a bigger project, and the whole thing ships in a compact box that fits through a standard apartment doorway. Now, let's talk about the situations where you might want to walk away. If you're looking for a machine that can take a 12-inch sheet of MDF and carve a full-size sign, you'll be disappointed. The travel limits on the X and Y axes are just under 70mm, so you're really confined to very small parts. Also, the spindle is designed for light-duty work. Trying to mill deep slots in hardened steel will wear the cutter down quickly and could overload the motor. The CNC controller, while easy to learn, doesn't support advanced features like tool change automation or high-speed probing out of the box. If you need multi-tool setups or want to run complex 5-axis operations, you'll quickly outgrow what the MF70 can do. Another practical consideration is the learning curve around rigidity and vibration. Because the frame is compact, you have to be mindful of how you clamp your workpiece. Using the supplied slot base plate is fine for thin materials, but for anything thicker than 5mm, you'll want to add a sacrificial table or a dedicated vacuum fixture to keep the part from lifting during a cut. Skipping that step can lead to a ruined piece and a frustrated afternoon. Also, the dust extraction port is modest. If you plan to mill a lot of aluminum or copper, you'll need a separate shop vac or an inline filter to keep the workshop clean. Those aren't deal breakers, but they're hidden trade-offs you'll encounter once you start using the machine regularly. What about value? The MF70 sits in a price band that's higher than a plain manual mill, but lower than most hobby-grade CNC routers that claim to do the same work. What you actually pay for is the combination of a very precise spindle, a sturdy column, and a controller that talks directly to a PC without needing a separate breakout board. For the money, you're getting a machine that can produce repeatable tolerances within a few hundredths of a millimeter, which is more than enough for most small-scale production runs. The fact that it's made in Spain also means the parts are sourced from a region with a reputation for tight machining tolerances, which gives a little extra confidence when you're ordering a brand new unit. If you're still on the fence, think about the projects you already have on the drawing board. Do you need a way to carve a custom gear for a robotics joint? Or maybe you want to etch a logo.